The champagne glass shattered against marble floor, crystal fragments scattering like diamonds as Mrs. Jang's son he clutched her chest and collapsed face first into her japchae noodles. Bisi Johnson's fork clattered from her hand. The elegant Seoul restaurant erupted into chaos around her, wealthy diners screaming, waiters frozen in shock, but Bisi was already moving. Her chair scraped backward as she launched herself across the polished floor, her braids whipping behind her, medical training overriding every instinct to stay invisible, to remain the quiet Nigerian woman dining alone on New Year's Eve. Across the restaurant, Jang Woo had been mid-sentence, laughing at something his sister Minji said when his mother's champagne flute slipped from her fingers. His smile died instantly. He was on his feet before the glass hit the floor, shoving past his bodyguards, his face draining of color as his mother pitched forward. Bisi reached her first. She dropped to her knees beside the elderly woman, ignoring the bodyguards who materialized around them, their hands reaching for weapons beneath expensive suits. Bisi's fingers found Mrs. Jang's throat, pressing for a pulse. Weak. Irregular. She rolled the woman onto her back with practiced efficiency, her dark hands stark against Mrs. Jang's pale, silk hanbok. Yama. Jang Woo's voice cracked with panic as he fell to his knees on the other side of his mother. Yama, no. Move back, Bisi commanded in English, then her broken Korean. Give me space. Jaigium. Minji was already sobbing, her phone in her trembling hands, calling emergency services. Bisi tilted Mrs. Jang's head back, checking her airway. The woman's lips were turning blue. No time for questions or permission. She locked her hands together, positioned them over the sternum, and began compressions. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm became her entire world. 15 compressions. 2 rescue breaths. Again. What are you doing? Jang Woo grabbed her shoulder. You're hurting her. I'm saving her life. Let me work. Bisi shrugged him off, kept compressing. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked, her shoulders burning, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not when she'd watched her own father die because Lagos hospitals lacked basic equipment. Not when she had the skills to prevent another family from feeling that crushing helplessness. Come on, she whispered in Yoruba, then English. Come on, mama. Stay with us. Jang Woo's hands hovered uselessly over his mother's body, his usual control shattered. His bodyguards stood frozen, weapons half drawn, unsure whether this foreign woman was helping or hurting, waiting for orders from a boss who couldn't speak through his terror. 28, 29, 30 compressions. Bisi prepared to give rescue breaths, but then Mrs. Jang's body convulsed. She gasped, coughed, her eyes fluttering open. Bisi rolled her into recovery position as the woman vomited onto the expensive floor. Alive. Breathing. Bisi's hands shook with relief and adrenaline as she monitored the pulse. Stronger now. More regular. Yama. Jang Woo's voice broke. His hand found his mother's, gripping it like a lifeline. He spoke rapid Korean, words tumbling over each other, and even without understanding the language, Bisi heard the raw love and fear. Mrs. Jang's eyes focused slowly. She squeezed her son's hand weakly, managed a small smile. Then her gaze shifted to Bisi, kneeling beside her in her rumpled dress, and something like recognition flickered there. Not memory. Something else. Gratitude. Understanding. The look of a mother who knew her son's secrets. Behind them, sirens wailed closer. The paramedics would arrive any moment. Bisi kept her fingers on Mrs. Jang's pulse, her mind racing through possibilities. Cardiac event, possibly myocardial infarction. She needs immediate hospital care. She glanced up at Jang Woo, ready to provide more medical details, and her world tilted sideways. She knew that face. Those eyes. The small scar above his left eyebrow that he'd gotten from a biopsy 3 years ago. Mr. Park. Except his name wasn't Park. And judging by the way his expression shifted from grief to shock to something dangerous as recognition slammed into him, he knew exactly who she was too. Dr. Bisi Johnson, the cardiac fellow at Johns Hopkins who treated him when his pancreatic cancer was still stage 3, who'd held his secret when he checked in under a false name, paid in cash, and made her swear on everything she held sacred that she would never reveal his diagnosis to anyone. Ever. The gratitude in his eyes hardened into something else. Calculation. His hand, which had been clutching his mother's, slowly steadied. When he spoke, his voice was controlled again, the vulnerability locked away behind walls of steel. You're a doctor. Yes. A good one, I think. His eyes bored into hers, and she saw the unspoken question. The threat. The memory of Baltimore hanging between them like a blade. I do my best, Bisi said carefully, her heart hammering against her ribs. The paramedics burst through the door with a stretcher and equipment, their efficiency breaking the terrible tension. Bisi stood, backing away to give them space, but Jang Woo rose with her. He straightened his jacket, and just like that, the terrified sun vanished. In his place stood a man radiating cold authority. Minji, go with Iyama, he said to his sister. I'll follow. Minji nodded, wiping tears, climbing into the ambulance without question. The paramedics loaded Mrs. Jang onto the stretcher, checking vitals, asking questions in rapid Korean that Jang Woo answered with mechanical precision. But his eyes never left Bisi. Have you ever saved someone's life only to realize it might cost you your own? Drop a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe because this story is about to get intense. You won't believe what happens next. The ambulance doors closed. The siren wailed into the night. The restaurant began to empty, diners eager to escape the drama. Bisi turned toward the exit, her legs weak with adrenaline crash, but a hand caught her elbow. Gentle but unyielding. Dr. Johnson. Jang Woo's voice was soft, deadly soft. A moment of your time. Bisi's mouth went dry. Around them, Jang Woo's bodyguards formed a loose circle, not threatening but present. The restaurant staff had vanished into the kitchen. They were alone in the dining room except for one elderly man still sitting at a corner table, watching with dark, intelligent eyes. I need to get home, Bisi said, trying to pull her arm free. It's late. My mother almost died tonight. Jang Woo's grip didn't tighten, but he didn't release her either. You saved her life. In my culture, that creates a debt I can never repay. Do you understand what that means? I was just doing my job. No, you did more than your job. You saw a stranger choking, and you didn't hesitate. You didn't ask permission. You didn't wait for someone else to help. His eyes searched her face. Most people freeze in moments like that. But you moved like you'd been waiting for the chance to save someone. The observation cut too close to truth. Bisi had been waiting. Waiting since she'd watched her father die in a Lagos hospital, helpless despite all her medical knowledge. Waiting to prove that her skills mattered, that she could prevent one more family from feeling that hollow grief. I'm glad I could help, she said carefully. Now please, I really should. Tell me something, Dr. Johnson. He released her arm but stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more threatening than shouting. What brings a Johns Hopkins-trained cardiologist to Seoul? A year-long research fellowship at a university hospital. That's what my assistant found in the 30 minutes since you saved my mother's life. Very impressive credentials. Very prestigious position. But it doesn't quite add up, does it? I slid down Bisi's spine. What doesn't add up? A woman with your skills could be at any top hospital in America, making 3 times the salary, building a private practice. Instead, you're here, alone, working in research that doesn't even let you practice medicine on patients. He tilted his head. Unless you're running from something, or someone, or maybe just yourself. That's none of your business. You're right. It's not. He pulled a business card from his jacket, pressed it into her hand. But my mother's health is my business. And I want the woman who saved her life to be the one who monitors her recovery. Bisi stared at the card. Embossed. Expensive. Just a name and phone number. No title. No company. I can't. I'm not licensed to practice in Korea. I can make recommendations to her doctors, but I'll handle the paperwork. The licenses. Whatever barriers exist. His voice softened slightly. Please. She'll be in the hospital for at least a week. I'm asking you to visit her. To make sure she's receiving proper care. As a favor to a grateful son. It sounded reasonable. Kind, even. But Bisi saw the trap behind the request. If she agreed, she'd be pulled into his orbit. And once she was close, he could watch her. Control her. Make sure the woman who knew his deadliest secret never had the chance to reveal it. Why me? She asked quietly. There are excellent cardiologists in Seoul. Because you already know. The words hung between them like a confession. You know what I'm hiding. What I can't let anyone in my world discover. And you kept that secret once before, even when I disappeared without explanation. That tells me something about your character. It tells you I respect patient confidentiality. It tells me you understand loyalty. And in my business, loyalty is rarer than diamonds. He glanced toward the elderly man still sitting in the corner, and some silent communication passed between them. My car will take you home. Tomorrow morning, someone will contact you about visiting my mother. You don't have to decide tonight. Just think about it. Before Bisi could argue, he was walking away, his bodyguards falling into formation around him. The elderly man stood, bowed slightly to Bisi with surprising respect, then followed. In seconds, they were gone, leaving her alone with the business card burning in her palm. Outside, a black Mercedes idled at the curb. The same one that had brought Jang Woo to the restaurant, she realized. A bodyguard opened the rear door, waiting. Bisi's apartment was 40 minutes away by subway. It was past midnight. Seoul streets were crowded with New Year's Eve revelers, many drunk, some aggressive. She got in the car. The driver said nothing as they pulled into traffic. The leather interior smelled like expensive cologne and danger. Bisi watched the city blur past, neon signs in Korean and English advertising everything from cosmetics to karaoke rooms. She'd been in Seoul for 8 months and still felt like a ghost passing through other people's lives. No friends, no connections, just work and solitude and the ghost of her father's disappointment that she'd run away from home instead of staying to fix Nigeria's broken healthcare system. The car stopped outside her building in Mapogu, a modest apartment complex that housed mostly students and young professionals. The bodyguard opened her door, handed her a bag she hadn't noticed on the seat. "From Jangnim," he said in careful English. "Payment for services." Bisi looked inside. Cash. Stacks of Korean won that probably amounted to more than her monthly fellowship stipend. She tried to hand it back. "I don't want. Please accept. Refusing gift causes dishonor." The bodyguard's expression was carefully neutral, but she heard the warning underneath. Rejecting Jang Woo's gratitude would be an insult, and insulting a man like him was dangerous. She took the bag. "Thank you." The Mercedes pulled away the moment she stepped onto the sidewalk. Bisi climbed the stairs to her 4th-floor apartment, her hands shaking as she unlocked the door. Inside, she dropped the money on her tiny kitchen table and sank onto her second-hand sofa. What had she done? Saving Mrs. Jang had been instinct, pure medical reflex. But now she was tangled in something dark and complicated with a man whose dying body held secrets that could get them both killed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text in English. "Mother is stable." Asking for the African angel who saved her. Hospital visiting hours begin at 9 a.m. "I'll send a car." JW. Would you trust a dangerous man who says he owes you a debt? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for the next part of this wild story. Bisi didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at the money Jang Woo had sent, watching dawn light creep across her apartment's beige walls. By 8:30 a.m., she'd made her decision. She would visit Mrs. Jang once. Make sure the woman was receiving proper care. Then she'd extract herself from this situation before it became more complicated. At 8:55, her doorbell rang. A different bodyguard this time, younger, with a polite smile. "Dr. Johnson? Ready?" The Mercedes took her to one of Seoul's most exclusive private hospitals, where money bought privacy and discretion. No crowded waiting rooms here. No fluorescent lights or antiseptic smell. Everything was wood paneling and soft music and nurses who moved like they'd trained at 5-star hotels. Mrs. Jang's room was on the top floor, in a suite that looked more like a luxury apartment than a hospital space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Han River. Fresh flowers perfumed the air, and in a bed that probably cost more than Bisi's yearly rent, Mrs. Jang sat propped against silk pillows, looking fragile but alert. "You came," she said in English, her face lighting up. "My angel." Bisi approached the bed, automatically checking the monitors displaying heart rate and blood pressure. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Jang?" "Please, call me Sonny. And I'm feeling grateful. The doctors told me what you did. They said without your quick action, I would have died on that restaurant floor." Her eyes welled with tears. "You gave me more time with my children. How can I ever repay such a gift?" "You don't need to repay anything. I'm just glad you're okay." Bisi pulled up a chair, settled into her professional mode. "Do you remember what happened? Any symptoms before you collapsed?" Sunhee described chest tightness that had started during the appetizer course, radiating down her left arm. Classic heart attack symptoms she'd ignored, not wanting to ruin the New Year's Eve dinner. Wu had been planning it for weeks. "He's so busy, you understand. Getting him to sit down for a family meal is like catching moonlight. He seems very devoted to you." "He is. Too devoted sometimes. He carries too much weight on those shoulders." Sunhee's expression turned shrewd. "He told me you knew each other before. In America. That you treated him for something he doesn't want to discuss." Bisi's professional mask slipped. "Mrs. Jang, I'm his mother. I know my son is sick. I've known for over a year." She reached out, grasped Bisi's hand with surprising strength. "I'm not asking you to break any oaths. I'm asking you to help him. He's too proud to admit he needs help. Too stubborn to show weakness. But you saved my life. Maybe you can save his too." Before Bisi could respond, the door opened. Jang Woo entered carrying a tray with traditional Korean porridge and side dishes. He stopped short when he saw Bisi, and something flickered across his face. Relief? Suspicion? It was gone too quickly to read. "Dr. Johnson, thank you for coming." He set the tray on his mother's bedside table with careful precision. "I brought Jug from your favorite restaurant, Yama, the one that makes it the way grandmother used to. You're a good son." He smiled, but her eyes moved between them with obvious calculation. "Dr. Johnson and I were just talking about you." "Nothing good, I hope," Jang Woo said lightly, but tension radiated from his shoulders. "Only the truth. That you work too hard. That you need someone to look after you the way you look after everyone else." "Son," he turned to Bisi. "My son thinks he's invincible. Perhaps you could convince him otherwise." The air in the room grew thick. Jang Woo's jaw tightened. Yama, Dr. Johnson is here to check on you. Not listen to a mother's complaints about her ungrateful son. I'm not complaining. I'm observing. Sunny's voice took on the steel that probably raised a man who commanded an empire. And I observe that you look tired. Thinner than you were 6 months ago. You think I don't notice, but I'm not blind. I'm fine. You're not fine. And I'm tired of pretending not to see it. She looked at Bisi. Doctor, would you say my son looks healthy to you? It was a trap. Answer honestly and betray Jang Woo's secret. Lie and lose Sunny's trust. Bisi chose the middle path. I need to do a proper examination to make any medical assessment. Then examine him. Son, he crossed her arms. Right now? Or I will discharge myself from this hospital and refuse all further treatment. Yama, you can't. Watch me. She reached for the 4 in her arm. Stop. Jang Woo grabbed her hand gently but firmly. His expression cycled through anger, frustration, resignation. Finally, he looked at Bisi. Would you mind stepping outside for a moment? I need to speak with my mother privately. Bisi fled into the hallway. Through the door, she heard raised voices in Korean. Sunny's sharp and commanding. Jang Woo's lower but just as intense. The argument lasted 5 minutes. Then silence. Then the door opened. Jang Woo stepped out, his face carved from ice. My mother is a manipulative woman who uses her health as a bargaining chip. I apologize for putting you in that position. She loves you. She's scared. She's meddling. He ran a hand through his hair, a crack in his composure. But she's also recovering from a heart attack, and stress is dangerous for her condition. So I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Can you keep a secret from my mother while also keeping her alive? That depends on the secret. The secret is that I'm dying, and I don't want her spending her remaining years watching me waste away. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I want her to remember me strong, capable, not the sick, weak thing I'm becoming. Bisi's chest tightened. That's not your choice to make. She deserves to know. To say goodbye properly if it comes to that. Goodbye. He laughed bitterly. Doctor, I don't plan on dying anytime soon. I plan on fighting this until my body gives out. But I'll do it quietly, without an audience, without turning my mother into a grief-stricken widow before her time. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Bisi leaned against the wall. Here's what I think. You can't protect her from pain by hiding the truth. You're just making it worse. When she finds out, and she'll be devastated that you lied. And if I tell her now, she'll be devastated immediately. At least my way buys her some happiness. Happiness built on lies isn't real happiness. Maybe not, but it's all I can give her. He straightened his jacket, mask sliding back into place. Will you help me or not? Bisi stared at him. This man who was equal parts criminal and devoted son, who killed to protect his empire, but brought his mother porridge from her favorite restaurant. I'll make you a deal. I'll help monitor your mother's recovery. I'll even do regular checkups on you. Make sure you're managing your condition properly. But you have to promise me something. What? If your condition worsens, if you're actively dying, you tell her. You don't let her walk into your funeral unprepared. Deal. His eyes narrowed. You're negotiating with me. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. She held out her hand. Do we have an agreement? He looked at her hand like it might be a trap. Then, slowly he shook it. His palm was warm, calloused, the grip of a man who'd built things with violence and will. Deal. Now come back inside and tell my mother I'm cooperating. Otherwise she really will pull out her 4. Son, he was sitting up in bed, arms still crossed, waiting. When they entered, her expression softened slightly. Well, Dr. Johnson has agreed to provide follow-up care for both of us, Jang Woo said smoothly. She'll visit you daily while you're hospitalized, and she'll also do a general wellness check on me to ease your concerns. Satisfied? Humph. I'll be satisfied when you actually listen to her recommendations instead of thinking you know better than medical professionals. But Sunhee's shoulders relaxed. The victory was won. Now both of you sit down and have some juk with me. I'm not eating alone. What followed was one of the strangest meals of Bisi's life. Sunhee told stories about Jang Woo and Minji's childhood, embarrassing anecdotes that made him scowl and made Bisi laugh despite herself. The crime lord who commanded fear across Seoul turned into a sullen son, rolling his eyes at his mother's teasing. It was so normal, so human, that Bisi almost forgot the danger lurking beneath the surface. Almost. Because between stories, she caught the way Jang Woo's hand trembled slightly when he lifted his spoon. The way he touched his left side when he thought no one was looking. The exhaustion in his eyes that no amount of expensive suits could hide. He was sicker than he'd been 3 years ago in Baltimore. The cancer was winning. After the meal, Sunhee dozed off, the medications and stress finally catching up with her. Jang Woo gestured for Bisi to follow him into the hallway. They walked in silence to a private consultation room at the end of the corridor. He closed the door, leaned against it, and for a moment the mask slipped completely. He looked his age, looked sick. looked scared. How bad is it? Bisi asked quietly. The truth. Always the truth. At least between us. He moved to the window, stared out at Seoul's sprawling cityscape. The metastases in my liver are growing. I can feel them now, a constant ache. The targeted therapy from Johns Hopkins, it worked for about 18 months. Bought me time. But I ran out 6 months ago, and I couldn't risk reordering through channels that could be traced back to me. So you've been without treatment for half a year. Yes. You idiot. The words came out harsher than she intended, but she didn't take them back. Do you have any idea what untreated pancreatic cancer does? It spreads. Aggressively. To your lymph nodes, your peritoneum, your bones. You're probably stage 4 by now. I know. Do you? Because you're acting like you have all the time in the world when you probably have months. Maybe a year if you're lucky. She wanted to shake him, to make him understand. I can help you. I can get the medication through my research fellowship. But you have to want to live. I do want to live, he said, voice raw. I want to walk Minji down the aisle when she gets married. I want to teach my mother's grandchildren taekwondo. I want to grow old and boring and spend my days feeding pigeons in the park. But wanting isn't enough, is it? Reality is what matters. And the reality is that I'm the head of an organization that will tear itself apart the moment I show weakness. Then make changes. Phase out the violent operations. Go legitimate. You think I haven't tried? He turned to face her, and his expression was bleak. This empire has roots that go back 40 years. My father's generation, my grandfather's. The men who work for me, they don't know any other life. If I try to dismantle it, they'll see betrayal. They'll fracture into rival factions and go to war. More people will die than if I just maintain the current structure. So you're trapped. We're all trapped, doctor. You're trapped in your oath to save lives even when the life belongs to a monster. I'm trapped in an empire I never wanted but can't abandon without causing a bloodbath. My mother's trapped loving a son whose profession breaks her heart. He moved closer, and she smelled his cologne, saw the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. The only difference is I've accepted my trap. You're still fighting yours. The observation hit too close. Bisi thought about her father's death, her flight from Lagos, the way she'd buried herself in work to avoid grief and guilt. Maybe fighting is better than surrender. Or maybe it's just slower dying. He pulled a small notebook from his jacket, wrote something, tore out the page. This is the name of my doctor in Tokyo. He has my recent scans and blood work. Contact him. Get the files. See how bad it really is. Then decide if I'm worth saving. Bisi took the paper. Everyone is worth saving. That's the whole point of being a doctor. Even criminals. Even criminals. Even stubborn ones who think dying is nobler than living. She folded the paper, tucked it in her pocket. I'll call Tokyo today, but you need to start taking better care of yourself. Less stress, better sleep, proper nutrition, and for God's sake, stop getting into physical fights. Your immune system can't handle it. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You sound like my mother. Your mother is a wise woman. Can you imagine carrying a secret that could save someone's life, but also put you in danger? Tell us what you do in the comments. And if you're hooked, hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get even more intense. Over the next 2 weeks, Bisi's life transformed into something she barely recognized. Every morning, a car picked her up from her apartment. Every afternoon, she spent hours at the hospital with Sunhee, monitoring her recovery, adjusting medications, ensuring the cardiac rehab plan was appropriate. And every evening, after Sunhee dozed off, she met with Jang Woo in the consultation room to discuss his treatment. The Tokyo doctor had been reluctant at first, citing patient confidentiality, but a 3-way video call with Jang Woo present had solved that. The scans were worse than Bisi feared. The pancreatic tumor had grown. The liver metastases had multiplied. Without immediate intervention, he had maybe 6 months. With aggressive treatment, possibly 2 years. Maybe. Getting the medication proved easier than expected. Her research fellowship gave her access to pharmaceutical trials, and she called in favors from colleagues at Johns Hopkins. Within a week, she had enough targeted therapy to keep Jang Woo stable for at least 6 months. The first injection, administered in that private consultation room with the door locked and her hands shaking slightly, felt like crossing a line she could never uncross. She was no longer just a doctor treating a patient. She was a co-conspirator, helping a criminal maintain his power by maintaining his health. Does it hurt? She asked as she withdrew the needle. No more than usual. He rolled down his sleeve, buttoned the cuff with practiced efficiency. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We won't know if it's working for weeks. She disposed of the needle in the sharps container she'd brought. And you need to understand, this isn't a cure. This is buying time. Eventually, the cancer will develop resistance to the therapy. We'll need stronger medications. Different approaches. I understand. Do you? Because you keep talking about time like it's infinite. It's not. You need to start planning for the future. For what happens to your family, your organization, When you can't lead anymore. His expression hardened. I am planning. But succession in my world isn't simple. The wrong choice could start a war that destroys everything my father built. Then make the right choice. There is no right choice. Only less terrible ones. He stood, moved to the window. A position Bisi had learned meant he was wrestling with something he didn't want to say. I have a lieutenant. Kong Daehyun. He's ambitious, competent, and he wants my position. He's been testing boundaries lately. Small infractions. Challenging my orders in front of others. Waiting for me to show weakness so he can make his move. So remove him from power. And replace him with who? Someone less competent. Someone more loyal but too weak to hold territory. He turned back to her. Power vacuums are dangerous, doctor. The moment I remove Kong without a clear successor, every ambitious man in my organization will think it's open season. We'll have civil war. Bisi packed her medical bag slowly, thinking, what about going legitimate? You said your organization has businesses. Nightclubs, import-export. Can't you phase out the criminal operations gradually? I've been trying. But it's like trying to turn a tiger into a house cat. The nature is still there, under the surface. And the men who work for me, they're not interested in legitimate business. They want power, money, the rush of violence. You can't reprogram that. But you're not like them. You didn't want this life. Your mother said your father forced it on you. Something flickered in his eyes. Old pain. My father was murdered when I was 25. Shot in the street by a rival gang trying to take our territory. I was in graduate school in Tokyo, studying business, planning to work in finance. Then I got the call that changed everything. Come home. Take over. Protect your mother and sister, or watch them be killed as a message to anyone who challenges the new order. So you sacrificed your future for them. I did what any son would do. And I discovered I was good at it. Too good. I built alliances. Eliminated threats. Expanded operations. Made us untouchable. His voice turned bitter. The irony is that in protecting them from danger, I became the danger. My mother loves me, but fears what I do. Minji doesn't even know the full extent of it. I've kept her isolated, separate, clean. She thinks I'm a businessman. Thinks the bodyguards are a precaution, not a necessity. She'll find out eventually. Maybe. Or maybe I'll die first, and she'll remember me as a good brother who loved her. He checked his watch. A movement Bisi had learned meant their time was up. I need to get back. There's a situation at one of my clubs that requires attention. What kind of situation? The kind you don't want to know about. He left, and Bisi sat alone in the consultation room, staring at her medical bag. 6 months ago, her biggest ethical dilemma had been whether to publish research results that might be misinterpreted. Now she was treating a mafia boss's cancer in secret, helping him maintain power, becoming complicit in whatever violence he committed to keep that power. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Sunhee's smile. Saw Minji's relief that her brother was finally taking care of himself. Saw the flicker of hope in Jang Woo's eyes when she told him the medication might buy him 2 more years. 2 years. 730 days. It didn't sound like much. But for a man who'd thought he had 6 months, it was a lifetime. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Jang Nim wants you to know situation is handled. No casualties. Return to normal schedule tomorrow. No casualties. As if that made it better. As if violence without death was somehow acceptable. Bisi deleted the text and packed up to leave. In the hallway, she passed a young nurse who bowed slightly, respectfully. Everyone at this hospital knew she was important. That she had access to the exclusive top floor. That the Jang family had personally requested her care. She wondered what they'd think if they knew the truth. Sunhee was discharged after 10 days with strict instructions for cardiac rehabilitation and lifestyle changes. Jang Woo's estate had been modified to accommodate her recovery. A ground floor bedroom, so she wouldn't have to climb stairs, a physical therapist who came daily, a nutritionist who designed heart-healthy Korean meals that didn't taste like punishment. Bisi visited 3 times a week, officially to monitor Sunhee's progress. Unofficially, to continue Jang Woo's cancer treatment in his private study while his mother napped and his bodyguards stood watch outside. It was during one of these visits, for weeks after New Year's Eve, that everything changed. She was checking Jang Woo's blood pressure when he suddenly went rigid. His phone had buzzed. He read the screen, and his face drained of color. What is it? Bisi asked. Calm. The name came out like poison. He made his move. Before she could ask what that meant, the door burst open. A bodyguard, young, bleeding from a cut above his eye, spoke rapid Korean. Jang Woo's expression turned to stone. He stood, grabbed a jacket from behind his desk, checked something inside it that Bisi suspected was a weapon. Stay here, he commanded. Don't leave this room until someone comes for you. What's happening? Kong attacked one of my clubs. Killed 3 of my men. He's claiming I'm unfit to lead, that I've gone soft, that the organization needs stronger leadership. Jang Woo's voice was ice. He's forcing my hand. If I don't respond immediately and decisively, Every lieutenant I have will think they can challenge me too. You can't go out there. You're not strong enough for a fight. I don't have a choice. He was already at the door. Lock this behind me. My mother cannot know what's happening. If she asks, tell her I had business meetings. He was gone before Bisi could argue. The bodyguard followed, and suddenly she was alone in the study, her heart hammering. She locked the door with shaking hands, pressed her ear against it, trying to hear anything. Footsteps. Voices. The sound of cars starting in the courtyard below. Minutes crawled past. 15, 20, 30. Bisi paced the study, her medical training screaming that Jang Woo was in no condition for violence. The cancer treatment was working, but slowly. His body was still compromised, his immune system weak, his stamina shot. One hard hit in the wrong place could rupture something, could kill him faster than any tumor. A soft knock made her jump. Dr. Johnson? It was Minji's voice, worried. Are you in there? I heard shouting. Where's my brother? Bisi unlocked the door. Minji stood in the hallway, elegant in a cream sweater and jeans, her expression confused rather than frightened. She really didn't know what her brother did. What he was. He had urgent business, Bisi said carefully. He said he'd be back soon. What kind of business requires bodyguards to run through the house like there's an emergency? Minji pushed past her into the study, looked around as if expecting to find answers in the furniture. Something's wrong. Wu has been acting strange for weeks. Tense. Angry. And now this. I'm sure everything is fine. Stop lying. Minji whirled on her, and Bisi saw the steel underneath the gentle exterior. She was her mother's daughter, after all. Everyone treats me like I'm made of glass. Like I can't handle reality. But I'm not stupid. I know my brother isn't just a businessman. I know the security consultants who work for him carry guns. I know the clubs he owns are fronts for other things. Then why haven't you said anything? Because he's my brother, and I love him. Because our father died violently, and Wu stepped up to protect us when he could have run. Because every choice he's made, every terrible thing he's done, he did it so our mother and I could sleep safely at night. Minji's eyes filled with tears. But I also know he's sick. I've known for months. I found his medication hidden in his office. I researched the drug name online. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 3, maybe stage 4 by now. Bisi's professional mask cracked. He doesn't want you to know. Well, I know. And I'm terrified. Because if he's dying, what happens to all of this? What happens to the men who depend on him? What happens when someone decides to take his place? She sank into the leather chair behind Jang Woo's desk. That's what this is about, isn't it? Someone's challenging him because they sense weakness. Before Bisi could answer, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered, her hand trembling. Hello. Dr. Johnson. It was Jang Woo's voice, strained, breathing hard. I need you to listen carefully. I'm bringing someone to the estate who's been injured. Gunshot wound to the shoulder, through and through, but he's losing blood. Can you treat him? I'm a cardiologist, not a trauma surgeon. Can you keep him alive until I can get a real surgeon here? Yes or no? She thought of her trauma rotation during residency. Of the gunshot victims she'd stabilized in Baltimore's emergency rooms before the surgeons arrived. Yes, but I need supplies. Sterile equipment, antibiotics, proper lighting. I'll have everything ready. 10 minutes. He hung up. Minji stared at her. He's bringing a gunshot victim here? To our home. Apparently. Bisi's mind raced through what she'd need. Do you have a room that can be sterilized? Bright lights? Clean sheets? The guest house. We converted it to a gym, but there's an attached bathroom and good lighting. Minji stood, suddenly all business. I'll help you set up. And before you tell me to stay out of it, forget it. This is my home. My family. I'm not hiding anymore. They worked quickly, converting the gym into a makeshift clinic. Minji proved surprisingly competent, following Bisi's instructions without hesitation, gathering supplies from the main house's extensive first aid cabinets. Apparently, being the sister of a crime lord meant keeping emergency medical supplies on hand. The gate buzzer sounded. Security cameras showed 3 black SUVs pulling into the courtyard. Jang Woo emerged from the lead vehicle, his white shirt splattered with blood. 2 bodyguards supported a man between them, his left shoulder wrapped in someone's jacket, blood soaking through. Behind them came 4 more guards, weapons visible, scanning the perimeter. They brought the injured man into the guest house gym, laid him on the weight bench Bisi had covered with clean sheets. He was young, maybe 25, his face twisted in pain. The gunshot had entered just below the collarbone, exited through the back. Lucky. Another inch to the right, and it would have hit the subclavian artery. Everyone out except Dr. Johnson, Jang Woo ordered. His men filed out immediately. Minji started to follow, but Bisi caught her arm. I need an assistant. She stays. Jang Woo looked ready to argue, saw his sister's determined expression, and nodded curtly. Fine. But what you see here, what you hear, it never leaves this room. Understood. Understood, Minji said. For the next 90 minutes. Bisi worked to save a man whose name she never learned. She irrigated the wound, checked for bullet fragments, packed it with gauze to stop the bleeding. Minji handed her instruments, held the man down when he thrashed, never flinched when blood sprayed across her expensive sweater. Jang Woo stood in the corner, silent, watching. His knuckles were bruised. There was a cut on his cheek. But he was alive, standing, functional. Whatever had happened, he'd survived it. Talk to me, Bisi said as she worked. What happened out there? Kong attacked my club with 15 men. Killed 3 of mine, wounded 6. He wanted to make a statement. Jang Woo's voice was flat, emotionless. I made a bigger one. His men are either dead or in the hospital. Kong himself is in the wind, but he won't run far. He knows if he doesn't finish this, I'll hunt him down. So this isn't over. No, it's just beginning. Would you risk everything to save someone who's being hunted? Drop your thoughts in the comments and smash that like button if you're on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to subscribe because the next part is going to blow your mind. The injured man, whose name turned out to be Ji-hoon, stabilized around midnight. The surgeon Jang Woo had called arrived shortly after, a nervous man who clearly didn't want to be there, but was too afraid to refuse. He examined Bisi's work, nodded approvingly, gave Ji-hoon antibiotics and pain medication, then fled as quickly as he'd come. Bisi and Minji scrubbed blood from their hands in the bathroom sink, neither speaking. Through the window, they could see Jang Woo in the courtyard, surrounded by his remaining men, giving orders in rapid Korean. His posture was rigid, controlled, but Bisi saw the slight sway, the way he braced his hand against a car hood for support. He's going to collapse, she said quietly. He can't. Minji dried her hands, her expression grim. Not now, not in front of them. The moment he shows weakness, they'll turn on him like wolves. Even after he just defended them, killed for them. Especially then. In this world, strength is everything. Loyalty only lasts as long as you're useful. Minji met her eyes in the mirror. You're from Nigeria, right? Lagos. Yes. I studied there for a semester during university. International Relations program. I saw how power works in places where government can't be trusted, where survival means building your own army, your own rules. She turned to face Bisi directly. My brother's world isn't so different from what I saw in Lagos. It's tribal, brutal, and the moment a leader falters, someone else takes his place. Usually violently. That's why he can't tell anyone about the cancer. That's why he can't even admit he has cancer. To himself or anyone else. Minji's voice cracked. He's going to die fighting to seem strong instead of living by admitting he's human. And I don't know how to stop him. They walked back to the main house together. Son, he was asleep. Thank God, sedated by the sleeping medication Bisi had prescribed. She'd never know about the violence that had erupted around her tonight. Never know her son had killed men to maintain control. In the kitchen, Bisi made tea while Minji sat at the marble counter, looking lost. How long does he have? Minji asked finally. With treatment? Maybe 2 years. Without it? 6 months. And you're treating him? I am. Why? You don't owe him anything. You could walk away from this mess, go back to your research, pretend you never met us. Minji studied her with uncomfortably perceptive eyes. But you're not going to, are you? Bisi poured tea into delicate cups, buying time to formulate an answer. Your mother saved my life in a way she doesn't understand. When I saved her, when she held my hand and called me an angel, something in me woke up. Something that had been dead since my father died. Purpose. Connection. The feeling that I matter to someone. So you're staying because you're lonely. I'm staying because your family, as complicated and dangerous as it is, makes me feel less alone than I've felt in years. Bisi sipped her tea, let the warmth spread through her chest. Also because your brother will die without proper medical care, and I can't let that happen. Not when I have the skills to prevent it. Even though helping him means becoming part of his world, part of the violence. I'm not part of the violence. I'm part of the healing. Is there a difference? Minji asked softly. When you patch up his men so they can go out and fight again. When you keep him healthy so he can lead an organization built on fear. Aren't you enabling it all? The question haunted Bisi for the rest of the night. She tried to sleep in the guest room Minji had prepared, but Dawn found her staring at the ceiling, wrestling with morality. Minji was right. Every injection she gave Jang Woo, every wound she treated, every piece of medical advice she offered, it all kept the machine running. Kept the violence churning. But what was the alternative? Let him die? Watch Sun Hee bury her son. See Minji lose the brother who'd sacrificed everything for her. At 6 a.m., Bisi gave up on sleep. She dressed, walked downstairs, found Jang Woo in his study. He was at his desk, still wearing the blood-stained shirt from last night, studying documents with red-rimmed eyes. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment she saw straight through to the exhaustion underneath. You should be resting, she said. So should you. I tried. Couldn't. She closed the door, moved closer. How are you feeling? Any pain? Nausea? I'm fine. You're not fine. You fought tonight. Your body is already compromised, and you went out there and... She stopped, took a breath. Let me examine you. Later. Now. She pulled the stethoscope from her bag. Or I walk out that door and don't come back, and you can explain to your mother why her doctor abandoned her. His eyes flashed with anger, then resignation. He unbuttoned his shirt with mechanical precision. Bruises were already forming across his ribs, a deep purple that made Bisi wince. She pressed gently, felt him flinch. Possible cracked rib. Maybe two. You need an x-ray. No hospitals. Too many questions. Then you need to rest. No physical activity for at least a week. Not possible. Kong is still out there. If I hide, if I show weakness, he'll come back with more men. Jang Woo caught her wrist as she moved the stethoscope. You don't understand how this works, doctor. In my world, you're either the hunter or the prey. There's no middle ground. Then change your world. I'm trying. But change takes time, and time is the one thing I don't have. He released her wrist, looked away. Last night, I killed 4 men. Shot them myself because I couldn't let my men do all the work, couldn't let them think I was weak. And you know what the worst part is? What? It was easy. Easier than it should be. I didn't hesitate. Didn't feel guilt. I just did what needed to be done. His voice dropped to a whisper. Sometimes I wonder if my father's empire didn't just trap me. Maybe it revealed who I really am. A man capable of violence without remorse. Bisi sat in the chair across from him. Or maybe it revealed a man capable of doing terrible things to protect the people he loves. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Because one is a monster. The other is just a man in an impossible situation. She leaned forward. But here's the thing about impossible situations. They don't last forever. Either you find a way out, or they destroy you. You need to decide which one you want. Before he could answer, his phone rang. He checked the screen, his expression hardening. It's Kong. He wants to meet. The meeting was set for neutral ground, an abandoned Buddhist temple in the mountains outside Seoul, a place where violence was forbidden by tradition older than any gang. Jang Woo insisted on going alone except for 2 bodyguards. Bisi insisted on coming with him. Absolutely not, he said. This is gang business. You're a civilian. I'm your doctor. If something happens, if you collapse, who's going to keep you alive long enough to get to a hospital? She crossed her arms. Besides, neutral ground means no violence. You said so yourself. I'll be safe. Neutral ground is a suggestion, not a law. If Kong decides to break tradition, things will get bloody fast. Then take more men. I can't. Showing up with an army makes me look scared. Scared leaders don't last long. He studied her face, seemed to be weighing something. Why do you want to come? Because I don't trust you to take care of yourself. Because your ribs are cracked and you're running on adrenaline and stubbornness. Because if you die out there, your mother and sister lose everything, and I can't let that happen. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite softness, but close. You care about them. I do. What about me? Do you care about me, or just the patient I represent? The question caught her off guard. She thought about the past month, the hours spent in his study, administering treatment, talking about everything from Korean history to Nigerian politics to the nature of power and responsibility. She thought about how he listened when she spoke, really listened, like her words mattered. How he'd arranged for her apartment building to get better security after she mentioned feeling unsafe walking home at night. How he remembered she liked her tea with honey, even though she'd only mentioned it once. I care, she admitted quietly. More than I probably should. Good. He grabbed his coat. Because you're going to need that stubbornness to keep me alive. Let's go. The drive took 90 minutes, winding up mountain roads still dusted with snow. The temple appeared like something from a dream. Curved roofs and stone walls weathered by centuries. Prayer flags snapped in the wind. A few monks tended the grounds, pretending not to notice the expensive cars arriving. Kong was already there, standing in the temple courtyard with 5 men. He was older than Bisi expected, maybe 45, with silver threaded through his black hair and a face that might have been handsome if not for the cruelty in his eyes. When he saw Jang Woo, he smiled. You brought a woman, he said in English, clearly for Bisi's benefit. How progressive. Let me guess. The African doctor who saved your mother? Word spreads fast in our circles. Dr. Johnson is here in a medical capacity. Jang Woo's voice was ice. You asked for this meeting. Talk. I'm offering you a way out. Retire. Step down voluntarily. Name me as your successor, and I'll make sure your mother and sister remain untouched. You can live out your remaining days in peace. Remaining days? Jang Woo's expression didn't change. What makes you think my days are numbered? Please. You look like death. You've lost weight. You move like a man in pain. And you brought a doctor to a business meeting. Kang's smile widened. You're sick, Jang. Dying, probably. And you're too proud to admit it. But I'm giving you a choice. Step down now with dignity, or I'll take everything by force. and your family will suffer for your stubbornness. You threaten my family to my face. On sacred ground. Jang Woo's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than shouting. That's bold. That's reality. You're weak. I'm strong. This is how succession works in our world. Kong took a step closer. Or maybe you'd prefer to settle this the old way. Single combat. You and me. Winner takes the organization. Beezy's heart dropped. Jang Woo couldn't fight. Not with cracked ribs and a body ravaged by cancer. He'd lose. Maybe die. But Jang Woo just laughed. You want single combat? Fine. Choose your weapon. No weapons. Just fists. Kong started removing his jacket. Like real men. Stop. Beezy stepped between them before she could think better of it. This is insane. You can't fight. Either of you. This is the 21st century, not some feudal drama. Stay out of this, doctor, Kong said. This is between men. I'm not staying out of anything. I'm a medical professional, and I'm telling you both that violence solves nothing. You want succession? Negotiate it. Create a leadership structure that doesn't depend on one man being invincible. She turned to Jang Woo. You're smarter than this. Use your brain, not your fists. She's right, a new voice said. Everyone turned. An elderly man emerged from the temple, wearing simple monk's robes. The same man who'd been sitting in the restaurant on New Year's Eve, Beezy realized. The one who'd watched everything. Violence on sacred ground brings bad fortune to all involved. Perhaps there's another way. And who are you? Kong demanded. Someone older than both your fathers. Someone who remembers when this organization wasn't built on blood, but on community, protection, mutual support. The monk's eyes were sharp despite his age. You both want what's best for your people, yes? Then find a solution that doesn't require anyone to die. Easy for you to say, Kong sneered. You don't have skin in this game. Don't I? I've watched this organization destroy 3 generations of good men. Turn sons into killers. Mothers into widows. Children into orphans. The monk looked at Jang Woo. Your father came to me the week before he died. Asked me to watch over you. To guide you if you ever sought guidance. I've been watching. Waiting. This is your moment to choose a different path. Jang Woo's mask cracked. My father never mentioned you. He didn't mention many things, including his own illness. Cancer, like you. He died in that street not because he was weak, but because he was too proud to accept help, to show vulnerability, to admit the system he'd built was killing him. The monk moved closer. Don't make his mistake. Break the cycle. Can one moment of truth change everything? Drop a comment with what you think should happen next, and don't forget to like and subscribe because this story is reaching its most intense moment yet. Silence fell over the courtyard. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Jang Woo stared at the monk, processing revelations that were rewriting his understanding of his father, his legacy, everything he'd built his identity around. He had cancer? Jang Woo's voice was barely audible. Pancreatic. Stage 4. Diagnosed 6 months before he died. The monk's expression was sad. He thought if he could maintain control, hide his weakness, he'd have time to prepare you properly. Instead, his enemies sensed something was wrong. They struck before he was ready. And you inherited an empire soaked in blood before you were ready to lead it. Kong looked uncomfortable for the first time. This changes nothing. The old generation's problems aren't my concern. What matters is who leads now. It changes everything, Beezy said, finding her voice. Don't you see? The system is broken. It's killed Jang Woo's father. It's killing him now. And it'll kill you too eventually, Kong, when the next ambitious man decides you're too weak to lead. She looked at both of them. You can keep playing this game until there's nobody left, or you can change the rules. Easy to say. Impossible to do, Kong muttered. Is it? Jang Woo spoke suddenly, his voice stronger. What if we restructured? Made the organization a collective instead of a monarchy. Shared leadership among 5 senior members. No more single leader who becomes a target. No more succession crises that end in bloodshed. Kong snorted. Leadership by committee? That's chaos. Is it more chaotic than what we have now? Wars every few years? Young men dying over territory disputes? Families torn apart? Jang Woo's voice gained momentum. We could phase out the violent operations. Focus on legitimate businesses. Nightclubs? Yes, but above board. Import-export without the smuggling. Protection services for legitimate businesses that actually want protection, not extortion. You're describing a corporation, not an organization. Maybe that's what we should be. Maybe the old ways need to die with the old generation. Jang Woo looked at his men, who were watching with wide eyes. I'm asking you to imagine something different. Something where your children don't have to hide what their fathers do for a living. Where your wives don't have to pray you come home alive every night. Where we build something we're actually proud of. Pretty speech, Kong said. But you're still dying. Even if I agreed to this fantasy, you'd be gone in a year, and we'd be right back where we started. Then make it about more than me. Jang Woo moved closer to Kong. ignoring the way his bodyguards tensed. You want power? Take it. Be part of the ruling council. Help me build something that outlasts both of us. Or kill me now and inherit an empire that will tear itself apart within months because everyone else will challenge you the way you're challenging me. The two men stared at each other. Bisi held her breath. Everything balanced on this moment, on whether Kang's ambition could be channeled into building instead of destroying. Finally, Kang spoke. 5-person council. Equal votes. You, me, and 3 others we agree on. All major decisions require majority approval. Phase transition to legitimate operations over 3 years. And full financial transparency among council members. Agreed. With one addition, my mother and sister remain off limits, no matter what. Anyone who threatens them answers to the entire council. Kang considered, then nodded. Deal. But I want it in writing. Contracts. Legal documents. I'm not trusting handshakes in this business. Smart man. Jang Woo extended his hand. We'll have lawyers draft everything within a week. They shook, and something fundamental shifted in the courtyard. The bodyguards relaxed fractionally. The monk smiled. Bisi felt tears sting her eyes and blinked them away quickly. The meeting ended with logistics. Who would serve on the council? How to announce the change to the broader organization? Which operations to phase out first? Kang left with a curt nod, his men following. Bisi watched them drive away, hardly believing what had just happened. You did it, she said quietly. You actually changed the system. I tried to change the system, Jang Woo corrected. Whether it works or collapses within a month remains to be seen. He turned to the monk. You said my father asked you to watch over me. Why wait until now to intervene? Because until now, you weren't ready to listen. You were too busy being the strong leader, the invincible boss. But illness has a way of stripping away pretense, doesn't it? Forces us to confront what really matters. The monk placed a hand on Jang Woo's shoulder. Your father would be proud, not of the empire you maintained, but of the courage you showed today in tearing it down. I'm not tearing it down. Just restructuring. Sometimes restructuring is the bravest form of destruction. The monk bowed slightly. I'll leave you now, but if you need guidance, you know where to find me. He disappeared back into the temple, leaving Bisi and Jang Woo alone in the courtyard. Snow had started falling, soft white flakes that caught in Jang Woo's dark hair. He looked exhausted but lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. How are your ribs? Bisi asked. Killing me, but worth it. He smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. I thought I'd have to fight today. Thought I might die trying to prove I was strong enough to lead. Instead, I admitted I'm dying and convinced my worst enemy to help me build something better. Life is strange. Life is what you make it. She moved closer, felt snow melting on her cheeks. And you're making something good. We're making something good. None of this happens without you pushing me, challenging me, refusing to let me give up. His eyes met hers, and suddenly the cold didn't seem to matter. Thank you, Bisi Johnson, for saving my mother, for saving me, for seeing something in our broken family worth fighting for. Before she could respond, his bodyguard called out in Korean. Something urgent. Jang Woo's expression darkened as he listened, then turned to her. We need to go? Now. Minji called. There's a problem at the estate. They drove too fast down the mountain, the car skidding on patches of ice. Jang Woo was on the phone, speaking rapid Korean, his face growing paler with every response. When he hung up, his hand was shaking. What happened? Bisi demanded. Kang's men. Before the meeting, before he knew about the deal, he sent a backup team to my estate. Insurance, he called it. They're holding Minji. The world tilted. Holding her where? For what? In the main house. They're demanding I surrender the organization to Kang completely, not this council compromise. They said if I'm not there in an hour with signed documents giving Kang full control, they'll kill her. His voice cracked. He didn't know. Kang didn't know his own men had gone rogue. He's heading there now to stop it. But they might not listen to him. They might panic and hurt her anyway. Bisi's medical training kicked into crisis mode. What about your mother? Where's Sunny? At her sister's house across the city. Thank God. If she was there, if she saw this, he couldn't finish the sentence. The car screeched into the estate's driveway 45 minutes later. 4 vehicles were already there. 2 of Jang Woo's, 2 that must belong to Kang. The front door stood open. Voices shouted inside, angry, frightened. Jang Woo started to get out, but Bisi grabbed his arm. Wait. You can't just run in there. They're expecting you. They'll shoot the moment you appear. That's my sister. I know. Which is why we need to be smart. She thought frantically. They don't know me. They saw me at the temple, but they don't know I'm connected to you beyond being a doctor. Let me go in first. Let me assess the situation. Absolutely not. I'm not sending you into. You don't have a choice. If you go in there, people die. If I go in, maybe I can talk them down. De-escalate. She was already opening the door. Trust me. I've talked down armed men in Lagos emergency rooms. I can do this. Before he could stop her, she was walking toward the house, hands visible, empty, moving slowly. One of Jang Woo's bodyguards tried to intercept her, but she waved him off. At the door, she called out in English. My name is Dr. Bisi Johnson. I'm a physician. I'm unarmed. May I come in? Silence. Then a voice, young, nervous, stay there. A man appeared in the doorway, early 20s, sweating despite the cold, holding a pistol with an unsteady grip. Behind him, she could see two more armed men in the foyer. And beyond them, Minji, sitting on the stairs, her face pale but composed. I'm a doctor, Bisi repeated. Not a fighter. Not a threat. I just want to make sure nobody gets hurt. Too late for that, the young man said. Jang needs to surrender, or his sister dies. Jang is willing to negotiate. But first, I need to check on Minji. Make sure she's okay. That's all. 2 minutes. Then I'll leave and you can continue your negotiations. She kept her voice calm, soothing, the same tone she used with panicked patients. Please. She's just a woman caught in the middle of men's business. Let me make sure she's not injured. The young man hesitated, looked back at his companions. One of them shrugged. Fine. 2 minutes. But we watch you. Bisi entered slowly, walked to Minji, knelt beside her. Are you hurt? She whispered. No. Scared, but not hurt. Minji's voice was steady, braver than Bisi would have been in her position. They came in an hour ago. Said they were following Kang's backup orders. But I heard them on the phone just now. Kang is furious. He's telling them to stand down, but they don't believe him. They think he's been compromised. Can you walk? Yes, but they won't let me leave. They said I'm leverage until Wu surrenders everything. Bisi's mind raced. 3 armed men, all young, all frightened of their own boldness. The situation was unstable, likely to explode the moment Jang Wu showed himself. Unless she could shift the dynamic. She stood, faced the young man who seemed to be the leader. What's your name? Why does that matter? Because I want to know who I'm talking to. I'm Bisi. You are. Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo. Okay. Can I ask you something? Do you have family? Parents? Siblings? He looked confused. Yeah. So imagine them in Minji's position. Held hostage because of decisions other men made. How would you feel? This is different. Is it? She didn't choose this life. She's a gallery owner. An art lover. She's never hurt anyone. Never been part of the organization's violence. She's just a sister who loves her brother. Bisi moved closer, kept her voice gentle. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. But if you hurt her, if this ends badly, you'll spend that life in prison or running. Is that really what you want? I want what I was promised. Security. Money. Respect. But his voice wavered. Kang promised you that. And now Kang is outside telling you to stand down because the situation has changed. There's a new deal. A better deal. One where you don't have to choose between following orders and doing the right thing. She gestured toward the door. Let me bring Kang in. Let him explain. Give yourself a chance to walk away from this without blood on your hands. Hyunwoo looked at his companions. One of them was barely 18, she realized. Terrified. The third, older, maybe 30, seemed more calculating. He was the dangerous one. No tricks, the older man said. You bring Kang in, alone, or we start shooting. Bisi nodded, walked slowly back to the door. Outside, Jang Woo was barely containing himself, his hands clenched into fists. Kang stood beside him, looking furious and worried in equal measure. They want you inside, Bisi told Kang quietly. Alone. They don't trust that you actually called off the operation. Idiots. I never authorized holding his sister. This was supposed to be pressure, not kidnapping. Kang straightened his jacket. If they've hurt her. They haven't. But they're scared. Young men with guns and bad orders are unpredictable. You need to stay calm, convince them to stand down without making them feel stupid for following your original instructions. Kang's eyes narrowed. You're smarter than you look, Doctor. I've dealt with frightened men holding weapons before. Lagos has its own problems. She glanced at Jang Woo. Stay here. Let Kang handle his people. If you go in there, your presence will only escalate things. If anything happens to Minji, Jang Woo's voice was raw. Nothing will happen to her. I promise. Bisi led Kang toward the house, praying she could keep that promise. Inside, the 3 men tensed when Kang entered. The older one raised his weapon slightly. Boss, we weren't sure the phone call was real. Thought maybe Jang had you under duress. I'm not under duress. I'm making a business decision. One that doesn't include terrorizing innocent women. Kang's voice was cold. Stand down. Now. That's an order. But you said. I said apply pressure. I didn't say take hostages. There's a difference. Kang moved closer to Hyunwoo. You want to be part of this organization? Then you follow orders, not your interpretation of orders. Let her go. The tension in the room was suffocating. Bisi watched the 3 men exchange glances, saw the moment they made their decision. Hyunwoo lowered his weapon first. The younger one followed immediately. But the older man hesitated, his eyes calculating. How do we know this isn't a trap? That the moment we let her go, Jang doesn't kill us all for this disrespect. Because I'm guaranteeing your safety, Kong said. As part of the new council structure. You made a mistake, but you thought you were following my orders. That's understandable. You walk out of here now, this is forgotten. New council structure? The older man looked confused. Jang and I reached an agreement. Shared leadership. Transition to legitimate operations. It's a new era. Kang's voice softened slightly. One where men like you can build careers instead of just surviving day to day. But it only works if we start now, by letting this woman go and proving we're better than the old ways. Slowly, the older man lowered his weapon. Fine, but I want it in writing. Protection from retaliation. You'll have it. Kong gestured toward the door. Now get out of here before I change my mind about forgetting this happened. The three men filed out quickly. Through the window, Bisi watched Jang Woo's bodyguards intercept them, patting them down, taking their weapons, but not detaining them. A show of the new order. Consequences, but not death. Minji stood on shaking legs. Bisi caught her arm, steadied her. You're okay. It's over. Is it? Minji's voice was hollow. Or is this just a temporary peace before the next crisis? Before Bisi could answer, Jang Woo burst through the door, pulling his sister into a fierce embrace. He said something in Korean, fast and desperate, and Minji responded in the same language, her composure finally cracking as she sobbed against his shoulder. Kong approached Bisi quietly. You have a gift for de-escalation. Ever consider a career in hostage negotiation? I'm a doctor. I negotiate with death, not criminals. In my experience, they're not that different. He watched Jang Woo comfort his sister. This new structure, it's going to be messy. There will be others who resist change, who try to exploit the transition period. Then you and Jang Woo need to present a united front. Show that the council is stronger than any individual leader. Bisi met his eyes. And you need to mean it. If this is just a power grab disguised as reform, it'll fail within months. I mean it. I want my son to inherit something better than what I inherited. Something that doesn't require him to become a killer to survive. Kang's voice dropped. My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. I watched her waste away while I built an empire on violence. What's the point of power if the people you love die afraid of what you've become? The raw honesty surprised her. Then help build something different. Something your son can be proud of. Kong nodded, then walked over to Jang Woo and Minji. The three of them spoke quietly, working through details, planning next steps. Bisi watched from the doorway, feeling suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and overwhelmed. She stepped outside into the cold evening air, let the snow fall on her face. Behind her, the estate buzzed with activity as bodyguards secured the perimeter and Minji's kidnappers were officially released with stern warnings. In front of her, Seoul sprawled in the distance, millions of lights against the darkening sky. 6 months ago, she'd been alone in this city, isolated, purposeless beyond her research. Now she was entangled in a Mafia family's drama, treating a dying crime lord, negotiating with armed men, and somehow helping to reform an organization built on violence. Her father would have been horrified, or maybe proud. She wasn't sure anymore. Dr. Johnson. Jang Woo approached, Minji beside him. Both looked drained but relieved. I don't know how to thank you. What you did in there, talking to those men, convincing them to stand down, it saved my sister's life. I just talked. They made the choice. You did more than talk. You saw their humanity when everyone else just saw threats. Minji hugged her suddenly, fiercely. Thank you. For everything. For saving our mother. For helping my brother. For not running away when things got dangerous. Where would I run to? Bisi said softly. You're my family now. Strange, complicated, occasionally terrifying, but family. Jang Woo's expression shifted, something warm breaking through the usual control. Then come inside. Have dinner with us. Minji is cooking, which means we'll probably order takeout halfway through, but the intention is there. They walked back into the house together, leaving the snow and the danger and the past behind. Inside, the kitchen was warm, full of the smell of Korean spices and the sound of Minji's laughter as she tried to remember her grandmother's recipe for kimchi jjigae. Bisi chopped vegetables while Jang Woo made tea, moving carefully around his cracked ribs, and for a moment everything felt almost normal. Almost. Because tomorrow the real work would begin. Restructuring the organization. Managing Jang Woo's treatment as his cancer progressed. Navigating the complicated politics of 5 strong personalities trying to lead together. Keeping Sunny healthy and happy without letting her see how close they'd all come to catastrophe. But tonight, they had this. Warmth, safety, family. And for Bisi Johnson, who'd spent so long running from grief and connection, it was more than enough. 6 months later, Sunny sat in her garden, surrounded by her grandchildren. Not biological grandchildren. Those would come eventually. But the children of organization members who now had legitimate jobs at the reformed company's nightclubs and import businesses. She taught them Korean, fed them honey cakes, and told them stories about their parents' courage in building something better. Minji's art gallery had expanded, now featuring works from young artists across Asia and Africa, a collaboration she'd built with Bisi's help connecting Nigerian and Korean creative communities. Kang's son had started university, studying business administration, preparing to take over the legitimate operations his father was building. And Jang Woo sat in his study, reviewing financial reports from the company's board of directors, formerly the Council of Five, planning the next phase of expansion. His cancer was still there, still growing despite the treatment, but slower now. Bisi had bought him time. Not decades, but years. Enough to see the transformation through. Enough to matter. Bisi entered with his medication, and he smiled. They'd developed a rhythm over the months. Treatment, conversation, comfortable silence. She'd stopped going back to her apartment most nights, had essentially moved into the estate's guest house, become part of the family in truth, not just words. "How are you feeling?" she asked, the ritual question. "Alive," he said, the ritual answer. "Thanks to you. Thanks to us. All of us choosing something different." He took the medication, swallowed it with water, then pulled her close. She settled into his arms, felt his heartbeat steady against her cheek. Not romantic. They'd never crossed that line, but intimate in a way that mattered more. The intimacy of shared purpose, shared survival, shared hope. Outside, children's laughter echoed through the garden. "Son," he called for them to wash hands before dinner. Minji sang off-key in the kitchen. Somewhere in Seoul, the organization's legitimate businesses thrived, employing hundreds, building something that would outlast them all. And Bisi Johnson, who'd saved a woman's life on New Year's Eve and accidentally stumbled into a Mafia family secrets, finally understood what her father had tried to teach her, that healing wasn't just about medicine. It was about courage, connection, choosing to build instead of destroy, even when destruction seemed easier. Especially then. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Drop a comment telling us what moment hit you hardest. Was it the temple scene? The hostage situation? Or maybe the quiet ending where family won over violence? Let us know, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our next incredible story. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose healing over hurt, even when the world tells you otherwise.